All right. So, welcome to another episode of Personality Typing with Habib. Today, we're going to be typing Greta Thunberg. So, we're trying to understand her personality. Maybe you've heard of, MBTI, Myers Briggs, 16 personalities. We're going to be using the 512 personality system, where there's a lot more types, objective personality, if you've heard of it, along with the social types, which is 2048 types. But anyway, so we're going to be looking into the previous episode. The recap is actually, okay, I had it mixed up, but the recap is going to be on Rachel Zegler, and then we're going to get into reviewing clips for Greta Thunberg, and then we're going to guess Greta Thunberg's type, and then we're going to see who the next person to type is. I do these every 2 weeks, so subscribe and get ready for all the personality typing that you can handle. So previously we had Rachel Zegler, who I typed as an ESFP, and that's something that everyone did see. I think beyond that, how extroverted or introverted of an ESFP she is, I think that might be a debate. But as far as seeing her as an ESFP, she played Snow White and is also quite vocal with certain activist points as well. So, but she's an actress first and foremost, and so it was interesting watching her. And she's a very different person from Greta Thunberg on some levels, but we'll get to see that. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and check out that episode if you haven't. And so today we're typing Greta Thunberg, and it's like, who does she remind you of? At least for me, she reminds me of people like Jill Stein, Jane Goodall, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and even a little bit of Billie Eilish, who's, Billie Eilish has been speaking up in terms of activism a bit more. And actually, all of these women have done some sort of activism on some level, or at least speaking up. And they have a certain ability to speak truth to power, which is something that so many of us struggle to do. It is when you're in those rooms with people, making people uncomfortable by what you're going to say. For example, climate activism, makes a lot of the people who just want profit, it makes them very nervous. And how many of our jobs are actually tied to profit? That's how we make money. And so it can be a little bit of this push and pull between people who just want to keep the system going to survive, or for greed. Really, it's usually for greed, at least on certain levels. But anyway, it's good to have these people who are able to speak up for, injustice or climate change or whatever else, class inequality. Billie Eilish has been talking about that. But anyway, Greta Thunberg reminds me of some kind of INTP. I did put ISTP in there as well. But you can even see in the face, there's certain qualities. I think she has kind of a mopey face, but we'll see about that. That's doing a few too many jumps, but sometimes you just see it. Actually, weirdly enough, she reminds me a bit of Elon Musk, but I did not want to put an image of that, because that's probably who she stands against. But anyway, we're going to be looking at some interview clips from 5 different videos. We're going to try to keep things going, and the first video is probably the best one for typing. So when I add the video in the description, you can check it out. But I'm going to be pulling 3 clips from there, and we're going to get to the narrowed down type pretty quick. But we're just going to be seeing, like, how does it show up in speech? Because just because you're this type does not mean you're going to get to do, big, amazing things. So, let's check it out. So first clip, we're just getting to know her. Let's play it for a minute.
No, very aware of those risks, saying that we are still doing this. Of course, we are still going to do this. And for me personally, if I can contribute with anything, if I can contribute with a platform or a name that I, for some reason, have reached for, then there is no doubt about what to do, for my sake at least. And we have to remember that Palestinians do not need to be saved. They don't need us to come to their rescue. What we're doing is listening and acting upon the call that Palestinians are making globally for people to stand up, end their complicity, and to step in and compensate for our own governments and people in powers inaction. We are loud and clearly saying that the world has not forgotten about Palestine, and that our government's atrocities do not represent us in any way.
This.
Yeah, so that's a very good snippet right there. Like, our governments do not represent us. Which type is worried about, who is gonna misrepresent me, right? I have a certain image, I have a certain principles and values, and don't misrepresent me. And that's what she's saying the governments are currently doing, which is correct. But yeah, I like that she's able to stand up for people, but we're gonna get plenty of that, so buckle up. Yeah, so in this clip, she's gonna get more into that story. But basically, this is kind of an IP story we're gonna see of standing up for people, and how is she doing that? Because she's so young and just like out of the womb, just going, just standing up for people, and it's very strong and good. But let's see how it's actually happening.
It means more than that. This is we are also trying to deliver hope and solidarity by, again, showing that the world is stepping up. We are not forgetting Gaza. We keep our eyes on Gaza. We keep talking about Gaza in every way that we can, using all the tools we have at hand.
Some people have said that your public profile has kind of shrunk a bit since you started talking about Palestine.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the case? And if so, why?
For sure. Like, I would say it's a very, very clear difference. And of course, I and my other friends and comrades were talking about social justice way before October 2023. But it was then that the media decided that, oh, now they're radicalized, now they've shifted focus. And it's like, no, we were talking about system change and social justice from the beginning. You weren't just picking out on those things. You were portraying us as angry kids talking about our future, which we also did. But so that is a constructed narrative by the media, the same media that put us in that position, us versus the status quo. We were the
angry kids talking about the future. Sorry to pause it there, but we have a couple more clips to get through, or a few more, so I want to keep it moving. But yeah, that's actually when you get to our type, we're gonna get there pretty quickly. INTP, angry kids talking about the future is what she was reduced to previously, but now it's like inconvenient when she's talking about certain issues that other people are uncomfortable with. Then she gets called radical or something like that, and it's not really true. It's just someone who is able to speak and being angry about the future. That's the intuition is going to be tied to the future, and then talking or anger or expression, free speech, it's a lot of thinking, and standing on it in a way is TI. But there's a few too many jumps. We got plenty more clips to get there. And then here at the end, well, it's good that I went there early, because we're going to hear a joke. Well, it's not really a joke, but it's funny. Peter Thiel, who is an INTP, who does he see as a threat? And it just makes Greta laugh, and I thought it's good.
So JD Vance's mentor, Palantir founder and tech billionaire Peter Thiel, I think that's how you pronounce his surname, recently referred to you, apologies in advance, as the Antichrist in an interview with the NY Times. Are you aware of this? And what's your response?
I think someone mentioned it. I mean, risking now that people are thinking that I don't take anything serious, but it is hilarious. Like, why are they spending their time slandering young people who are just trying to say the common sense and fighting for the bare minimum? It's like they wouldn't be doing that if they didn't feel threatened by us and this uprising that we are a part of. But yeah, it's a huge source of entertainment for me as well. So thank you for
Yep, that's good. Yeah, it's a huge source of entertainment, but it's true. She's getting slandered just for standing up for basic principles, basic values, basic things, right? And Peter Thiel demonized her to that extent. You know, he went on an Antichrist tour, you know, and this is his grand conclusion. Look it up. You know, I thought she was joking, or I thought this was a joke, but, you know, that's actually who he's demonizing. And it makes sense because, you know, the people who have the, you know, the money and the institutions, they're afraid of people who just speak, you know. People who just who speak, you know, are kind of yeah, because they'll just call it out like they see it. You know, truth is the enemy to corruption, and there's a lot of corruption, and corrupt people can't just say, "Hey, I'm corrupt." You know, they actually just go after people who are speaking out. That's what happens. And yeah, here on the next clip, I'm going to be mentioning, yeah, social 3 out of the 4 social types. The, you know, social type 1 is the ego, social type 2 is generalist, social type 3 is specialist, social type 4 is, you know, you're very friendly, family oriented, you know. I mean, it's hard to say that, you know, but I know. But anyway, social 3s are tied to activism, right? You know, you can check out my other videos on social types if you want to see something good about social types. But anyway, Greta Thunberg is probably a social 3, and she is carrying the banner of activism in a number of areas, and she's also seeing that it connects. And this is where the kind of the INTP aspect comes in, because the NE is tying all the different issues together, and she's able to see that where she started with climate, you know, it ended up going to war and the military industrial complex and all these other things, because it's all connected, right? And so it's up to you and up to everyone to just put the puzzle together. And of course, the INTP is going to be able to put that puzzle together and speak about it. And that kind of reminds me of Bernie Sanders, who is an INTP, but we'll get there in the next clips. Anyway, good job to you if you're watching this, because, you know, the truth is hard for a lot of people to hear. Oops.
The alternative movement are being increasingly silenced and demonized and repressed. People will most likely continue to be drawn to right-wing populism and fascism, and that is an extremely scary development that we are seeing all over the world, not the least now in the US. But of course, we also have to remember that, as an example, like we were talking about Palestine, the genocide in Palestine is happening under the Biden and Harris administration with American money and American complicity. And no matter who will be president, as long as nothing fundamentally is changing, the USA will continue to be an imperialist, hyper-capitalist world power that is going to continue to lead the world further into this climate catastrophe and a racist and unequal world. But of course, Trump in this case is extremely, extremely dangerous. But I mean, we cannot let this put us into further despair and apathy. The opposite, we have to let this be yet another reason why we are getting organized and filling the streets and resisting, because there is no other option. This has to radicalize us.
Well, it seems like it seems as if you are actively resisting. You're certainly not in a state of despair, or at least not letting despair stop you from fighting against power. And it's not just Donald Trump. Politicians in Germany are calling for you to be banned from the country because of your participation in pro-Palestine protests. You're on a Hungarian media watch list because of your activism. You've come under fire from politicians in India after supporting the farmer protests there. Why do you think governments find you to be such a threatening figure?
Well, obviously, have you seen me? I am extremely threatening. No, but it's when people like that, among the most powerful people in the world, are saying those things and are acting in that way, that means that they do feel threatened, and that is a very positive sign, because that means that we are actually making a difference. Otherwise, they wouldn't waste their time doing that, and they wouldn't embarrass themselves on the world stage saying those kinds of things.
Greta,
Yeah, that was really good. It is working. It is dangerous to them, you know, even though, look, she doesn't look threatening, but when the words are that powerful, it's, you know, it's not even that powerful in the sense it's just speaking truth to power. And something so simple can cause so many people to, at least not so many people, but those institutions to get very nervous and those governments to get very nervous because they're corrupt, and that's what happens when you speak against corruption. Yeah, so, you know, the next clip, you know, that was really good, and she reminded me, you know, of course, of Bernie Sanders, where after the 2016 election, you know, Bernie Sanders was like, let's not fall into despair, you know, and he had a message. You know, this is the same thing here, where like I feel like that TI is just so anchored towards some kind of positive momentum or action. And yeah, I have some understandings about that, but we want to focus this video on just typing Greta. But there is something about TI with all that, you know, hope. And we're going to see that here in this clip. Mehdi Hassan is an ESTP, at least by my typing. And he's going to ask her about, you know, how do you have hope?
Yeah.
You say we're heading in the wrong direction. Michael Connors asked the question I'm sure you get asked all the time, but let's ask Michael's question from the Q&A. How do you stay hopeful, Greta, when progress on the issue of climate change and human rights sometimes feels impossible?
I don't know. I don't think that being hopeful is something that I will get given to me. I don't think that I can read headlines or see developments and think, oh, that makes me hopeful. No, so feeling hopeful is something that you have to earn. Hope is something that you create. It is a verb. Hope comes when we start to act. And if everyone is sitting, waiting for something to make them feel hopeful in order to act, then we end up in this endless cycle of everyone waiting for someone else to do something.
Well said.
Not realizing that they are someone themselves and they can start doing something. So I guess, I don't know if I would describe it as feeling hopeful, just feeling realistic. If we decide to get something done, if we decide to take action, then we can create the hope that we need. But if not, then there is not going to be hope. I wouldn't say that I'm either optimistic or pessimistic, but that I'm realistic.
Yeah.
So
But
again,
on the realism front, Kevin Morrison asks, fighting climate change seems more urgent.
Yeah, so she is realistic, you know, that kind of hints at something, you know, and you'll see I did have difficulty narrowing down the exact type. And yeah, that's a clue. You know, we got to watch out for that. Is that, you know, the NT can be very optimistic and the ST can be a lot more realistic, but, you know, sometimes we all kind of go back and forth between those. And yeah, so this was just very good to hear about her ideas about hope. And yeah, that's a TI thing, in my opinion. And I did see a comment here about, hey, looking forward to see the deciders or the modalities of deciders. So this person already knows that Greta Thunberg is a decider. And now the question, so that's either IP or EJ. And she's an IP, in my opinion. And yeah, so I'm going to be talking about why she might be double feminine, you know, and that is the modality, you know. Double feminines, they do have the tester modality, which can be sensitive to smells and things like that. And there's just a funny clip here with Trevor Noah. Let's check it out. It's also, she's also going to talk about education, which, you know, you can see where is her consume on that, where is her OE on that, how willing is she to gather things. You know, these are difficult things for me to you know, type and test for, but we'll see. Yeah, that was really great. I mean, there's also, you can hear some of the introvertedness, which I didn't write on the slide, but it's important to prove, every little coin here. There's 11 coins out there, but there's more, but basically Greta Thunberg, she was on that boat alone, or able to think and smell whatever normal things. And then when she arrived in New York, she was just overwhelmed by all the stuff. And that's kind of what I'm seeing as double feminine. And yeah, we can kind of move on from there, but it's really good. It's really good. She's younger in that clip. But yeah, anyway, fast forward to today, or more recently in the last year or so, there was, and this is the last video. So in this last video, we're going to be covering a little bit, just a little bit about this flotilla where, as part of her activism, Greta Thunberg is, trying to distribute aid to the people of Gaza. And of course, those attempts were, well, not of course, it shouldn't be of course, but, that attempt was stopped. You're just trying to give people aid, and that gets stopped because the governments are complicit and they're, just stopping everything that's good in this world and all that. But anyway, she does a good job of talking about the social three activism, and she has that lens of that IP story that she does project onto others. She projects also onto the Palestinian people, and it's good. It's actually really good because it gives people a lot of space to be themselves and have their own story. This is what I like about, IPs and EPs, really, is we give people the room and the space to be themselves. We don't try to put people in a box, Anyway, I love that about her, and let's just hear from her one last time, because this is the last video clip.
Because it's such an enormous crisis, and it's difficult to know where to start. So thank you for laying that out. Another concrete thing is that on our website of the Global Summit Flotilla, there is a function where you can email your foreign officers and elected officials, which is another thing in connection to the flotilla. But I want to point out that even though this flotilla is a humanitarian mission, this should be in no way be seen as us coming to the rescue of the Palestinians. Palestinians do not need anyone to come and save them. Palestinians are calling for us who can act to speak up, to do everything in our power to apply pressure on our government, our institutions, and our companies who are enabling and fueling this genocide to take place, and to end our complicity. And that is what we are doing. We are listening and acting upon the calls of Palestinians to take action. The idea of having a flotilla with dozens of boats coming to Gaza was initiated by Palestinians. So listen to what Palestinians are calling for you to do. Step out of your comfort zone. Realize that you are not risking anything by speaking up compared to what Palestinians are facing every day, just trying to make ends meet, just trying to survive, especially those who are risking their lives every day trying to report on the situation. So there are so many things that you can do locally, whether it is occupying the Israeli embassy, whether it is putting pressure on companies, whether it is doing events to raise awareness and create opinion about the situation. So most importantly, get organized and go together with others who share the same motives as you, and think creatively.
Yeah, so that was really good. I didn't know when to pause it there because it's a little choppy audio, but that was a lot of really good lessons. Also kind of a crash course into activism, and it's about listening to the people who are being wronged and letting their story kind of be told. Because what's happened is that a lot of journalists were killed, and I don't know if you're okay with journalists getting killed or journalists dying or journalists not being able to be let into certain places. We have issues like that in this country, America, and we have issues with that in multiple countries. And that's something to keep an eye out for because, so many of us, like she said, are comfortable and you don't get to enjoy the comfort for very long if, you know, things just keep deteriorating. And so, yeah, I think she did a really good job speaking out. And I think at least most of the guests that I have is narrowed down. There are some parts I'm unsure of, so I really would like your help in seeing what's your guess, you know, especially on like the few coins I struggle with. Let me know what you are thinking for Greta Thunberg's type. So my first narrow down is that's the easy part, but then it gets harder beyond that. Okay, I might have already, you know, eliminated the type, who knows, but my first guess, you know, because I wiped the board mostly, is some kind of INTP. So either TINE or TISI. I do have ISTP still on the board there, you know, I said, but it's really some kind of INTP, at least that's how I'm seeing it. And yeah, it's hard to narrow down further from here. But I was seeing sleep and consume. I was seeing blast last, which is very confusing because how is she blasting? How is she making her points and all this? And so I think people just don't understand what blast is exactly. And it's hard, you know, when someone is operating on all cylinders and they are, you know, kind of the alpha version of their type, or they're a really good version of their type, like very powerful, strong, you know, doing the most that they can do, which I think Greta is. She's operating on all cylinders, using more of her brain than most people, you know. Then I think it does become hard to type that person because you see them doing so much. But I think this is, you know, generally the region consumes sleep, or sleep consume INTP. And yeah, so let's get into what is the final guess. So there's a joke I put here. Basically, she has a spine, unlike basically all world leaders and governments and stuff. But anyway, moving on. So the initial guess is a standard INTP. Consume, sleep, play, blast last, of course, double feminine. You know, it could be it could be MF, it could be FM, I don't know, but I'm seeing double feminine. Number 3 social type. So this is quite similar to Billie Eilish, at least animal stack wise, who is consume, sleep, play. But Billie Eilish is double masculine and Greta Thunberg is double feminine, allegedly. And Greta is an INTP. But yeah, the social 3 stuff is very cool. Oh, I did not update the left-hand side. Oops. Oops. Anyway, yeah, I'll have it updated for the next thing. But go by the top. The top section is correct. INTP jumper is my alternate guess. TISI, sleep, consume, play, blast last. Number 3. And then yeah, it's basically this. This is the guess, okay? INTP. Oh man, I gotta fix the slide. Let me see. Okay, now we'll fix it for next time. But yeah. So in 2 weeks, we're gonna be typing Francesca Albanese, who is a United Nations Special Rapporteur, reporter for the occupied Palestinian territories. And yeah, so that's going to be in 2 weeks, February 13th. You know, sometimes I do it on Saturday, but it's been really good to do this typing of Greta. She's very inspiring. I will, yeah, so for the next class, you know, Francesca Albanese, I'll have the correct little type shown, so we can have some consistency there. And I need to stop rushing these slides. Take care. It was really great to do this class for y'all, and hope you are getting good at typing or learning from the different personality types on the spectrum.